Good morning all of you and welcome to the oddity, not me, the oddity that is a Tuesday Gazzetta dello Sport rip-off here on Revista della Liga. We let Monday go by partially because I was a little bit hors de combat, a little bit croaky and play misty for me. We didn't think you needed exposure to that. So Tuesday morning's headlines, Clásico's been long forgotten, right? Wrong. Okay. It's Mundo Deportivo, admittedly a Catalan paper, saying Madrid are sick of Vinicius. And Mundo Deportivo referring to the fact that they think Lamine Yamal is a little bit down on his luck, a little bit short of energy, short of form. Well, he's had a fucking groin injury, gents. Ladies, calm down. Happiness, but tension is the message here. On Tuesday morning from Diario AS, a huge amount still being devoted to the Clásico. Here's the spread inside where they talk about Xabi Alonso crowning himself because the vast majority of the previous coaches in their first Clásico in charge of Madrid have lost, apart from Zidane, but Lopetegui, Rafael Benitez, Ancelotti, blah, blah, blah. And the news that Dani Carvajal, who was so central to that big old row on Sunday afternoon, has to go in for arthroscopic surgery once again because there's been a troublesome piece of matter, gristle, bone floating around and they need to get that sorted out. So it's possible that Madrid now don't see him. Hello, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Opportunity beckoning. It's possible that Madrid don't now see Dani Carvajal, a little coffee, where would we be without it, for 3 months' time, something that has an impact on Spain too. I haven't brought all the newspapers, but I can represent them for you. The vast majority of the front 6, 7, 8 pages in all 4 football papers are dedicated to Vinicius, not to Lamine Yamal and his ill-guided but really badly supported, badly protected words in the Friday version of that idiotic piece of circus nonsense, gaudy, infantile shit, reality football TV that Gerard Piqué has invented called the Kings League. Honestly, I think it's a piece of honk. Good luck to those who think that football can be reduced to Diet Coke and bubblegum and sweeties. And for the club, for Barcelona to allow Lamine Yamal to go on that, or not to order him, all the players, that they can't go and do private events and speak out commercially in the build-up to a Clásico, that's infantile. As I wrote for ESPN yesterday for today, I've lived in Spain longer than Lamine's been on this planet, and in 99.9% of the times, the idea that either Madrid or Barcelona would allow important squad footballers to go and at random appear in commercial events and talk as they see fit in the build-up to a Clásico is incomprehensible. Where was Gerard Piqué saying, okay, we're hiring you to be president of a club, but we're not going to let you speak. It's a bad idea. Or if we do let you speak, it's going to be straight, meat and 2 veg, not sitting opposite this careerist, adventurous, self-aggrandizing Ibai Llanos, a Madridista, where somebody compares Ibai's team in Kings League with Real Madrid, and the stupid phrase about, well, they rob and moan, which was aimed at Porcinos, is taken out of context. It's taken specifically to be an attack by Lamine on Real Madrid. It was stupid. It was injurious to Real Madrid. It was immature. But where was Jorge Mendes, Lamine's agent, preventing him from doing something stupid like that? Where was Hansi Flick, who a couple of press conferences ago, when I asked about Lamine's off-the-pitch behaviour, well, none of my business. Bullshit, it isn't. Particularly in the lead up to Clásico. So, faulty protection mechanisms for Lamine Yamal, but I struggle a little bit to choose a side here with Vinicius, because from the moment he arrived, and for those of you who weren't following Revista de la Liga at the time, you're going to have to take my word from it. From the moment he arrived, I saw world-class potential. I disagreed with what people were saying, that he would never control his ability to finish in front of goal, stay calm and finish, and bring to fruition his extraordinary talents. And I've often disagreed with people who say he's a bad one, he's a wrong one, because I think for any of us who haven't been born in either a creed or a colour that people are prejudiced against and attack all the time, it ill behoves us to talk about what it feels like to be under attack all the time. I know what I'd be like. I know how I would behave. And I'm honest enough to say that I would be rabid with anger and I would do Vinicius style things. In this instance, however, even though Vinicius under Xabi Alonso has only completed 390 minutes, even though he's been benched 3 times, the ferocity, and even though I would say it felt incomprehensible, I suppose it's the old thing about blackjack, stick or twist. And at that stage of the match, Xabi Alonso decided to stick. He'd already cleverly, let me add, this is in no way even a hint of criticism. Instead of playing Mastrantano, he decided that Camavinga and Tchouaméni would block the defence, that it would be hard for Barcelona to penetrate. He took a leaf out of the book that Mourinho wrote in the latter 2/3 of his time in charge of Real Madrid, when he tried to create anti-Messi walls, which was a triangle of players starting from the back 4, then often there was 3 in front of them and 2 strikers dropping back, so that there was this sort of pyramid saying to Messi, you won't, not only with the ball, but if you're running off the ball waiting for a pass in, you're going to be blocked and checked, it's going to be busy, there's going to be traffic everywhere. And in several games, it was notably successful. Xabi Alonso was part of that era, and he lifted the idea about how to make it hard for an under-par, slow, I think we can use the word failing, Football Club Barcelona. As a tactic, it was absolutely hunky-dory, because not only did Barcelona find it hard to create special things with all the possession that they had, the truth is that Real Madrid's ability to plunder and break was dynamic. They should have won by 3 or 4 goals more than they did. But at the point where he says, I'll tell you what, the fact that Vinicius is having an absolute field day, the fact that Vinicius is at or around the best player on the pitch right now, the most dangerous player on the pitch right now, doesn't matter. And he had been really extraordinary in 2 brilliant moves down his left-hand side. It looked like Koundé was absolutely cooked. There were bookings all over the Barcelona team. The logical thing would have been, go for the throat. Let Vinicius run at them, target them, create more space, create more goals. The goals will come, there'll be a fiesta, and Madrid will win by 4 or 5. Alonso thought, no, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is not flat out defend, but the changes he made undoubtedly added to solidity in the middle of the park, bite in the recuperations and the tackles, and an idea that they would see out the remaining minutes. And indeed, although they did see it out, and they've got the 3 points, and they've got their win. And you saw them jigging. Very little attention has, given all that happened, has been paid to the fact that Madrid's staff and players were jigging around on the touchline as if they'd won a trophy. Well, although I've never seen that in a first Clásico of the season. Never. Not even, well, maybe in the 5-0 Barcelona 15 years ago, when Mourinho had his first game in charge of Madrid in a Clásico, when the 5th went in. But by the end, there was no contest about how the result was going to go. But when that final whistle went, even with Pedri sent off and Barcelona down to 10 men and Madrid leading, they erupted. They apart from the pushing and shoving and the handbags, they were dancing and they were jigging and they were celebrating because the monkey was off their back. 4 defeats in Clásicos last season, 2 during which they could reasonably argue that they had a case to win, which was the last league Clásico and the cup final. And therefore, having been pumped by Atletico Madrid, having lost the really big defeat against Paris Saint-Germain, having done badly in the Champions League last season, where they were eliminated pretty handily. This entire idea of the need to produce a big result, not just a defeat of Barcelona, was so important that he thought Vinicius off, solidity in the remaining changes on the pitch. Fine as far as tactics are concerned, and ultimately, who writes history? The winners. But Vinicius didn't see it that way. You were probably watching. He was like, me? Are you fucking sure? It was a De Niro. You looking at me? You calling me off? And he stomped and he pouted and he barely touched five with Rodrigo, his bosom buddy, down the tunnel. Okay, eventually he comes back up. He's involved in the fight at the end. And there are briefings going on now. Briefings that, the lip readers all say, this is why I'm leaving the club. This is why I'm out of this team. Vinicius effectively announcing that at the first opportunity, this time, having been opportunities to leave before, he's going to go. This time, the word is, Alonso will be allowed by Real Madrid. The papers are full of, this newspaper, Diario AS, is full of the idea that instead of Florentino Perez or Jose Angel Sanchez saying, our reputation has been sullied, Vinicius must be fined or dropped, they're leaving it to Alonso, which I think is a very good idea. You do not undermine your new coach, one who looks as if he's going to be the right medicine, by taking discipline and choice of what to do with his players out of his hands. That would have been a mistake. Let's see how Alonso and Vinicius handle the period between now and the winter break. There's an international break coming up. Let's see how Ancelotti handles Vinicius' state of form and his behaviour. Ancelotti now being the Brazil coach. I would have thought he'll be selected. I would have thought this will probably lower the tension a little bit in terms of the focus on Xabi Alonso and Vinicius. But I think it's also important that during that international break, those who represent Vinicius will be looking around to see what the market says. Is that enough about the Clásico for the moment? I think it might be. And the other themes that come to my mind are these. First of all, this Gazzetta, James Richardson, good morning. This Gazzetta dello Sport homage is the only part of our content that we bring to you completely free of charge, because it costs us to travel places, it costs us to edit, to publish. It's something that needs to be supported. We want it to be supported in the most accessible and the cheapest way possible. I'd go so far as to say that our aim is that this will eventually wash its face but be non-profit. We're not in this to retire early. But last week, for example, we had friendly support from Kevin Bridges, Greg McHugh. Thank you both, lads. I hope you both enjoyed the Clásico. We had a little hello from Michael Laudrup, harking back to his Clásico interviews with us. We had Pete Jensen and Mr. La Liga Television, Jamie Easton. All of those, everybody is doing this as a letter of love to Spanish football, but we need your support. Join us. The very simple thing is that if you get it done before the end of October, it's 30 quid, which will take you through all the Copa del Rey, which starts in serious level this week. It'll take us through all of La Liga. It'll take us through all of the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League, and it will take us through World Cup qualifying, possibly a game between Spain and Argentina in Qatar, the finalissimo to decide. It's a Super Cup between the champions of Europe and the champions of the world. And it will take you all the way through the World Cup, where I hope to be working with Spain, and I hope to see Spain winning the World Cup in New Jersey. That's what 30 quid buys you. Find me better value anywhere else. As they say in the very tired phrase now, I'll wait. Back to business. This is not always the theme that I like to get onto. We'll start with the way that several of La Liga's teams seem to be coping really well with the dual, sometimes onerous task of playing in Europe and maintaining strength and winning ideas domestically. So, for example, Osasuna punching hard against Celta, still lose at home to Celta. Celta having beaten Nice in pretty dramatic, pretty thrilling fashion in midweek. Celta win in the league after having registered 7 1-1 draws. Now, admittedly, their European game was at home, That was a hell of a big result for Celta, and evidence that you can play in Europe and then come and be powerful at home. The trend was added to a little bit by Atleti, pumped by Arsenal, really shredded, okay, in a what do you call it, a power play in North London. But nonetheless, they go down to Betis, who'd scored in a record 43 games before the last time out when they failed to hit the net. They failed to hit the net this time, and Atleti won 1-2-0 with really cracking goals from the miraculously recovered Giuliano Simeone and Baena. And albeit that Betis had lots of opportunities and lots of possession, Atleti were Cobra-like. They stayed threatening and they punched when they could. They punched when they had to. And having been involved in European football in the middle of the week, they win away from home at Betis. Never an easy task. Rayo probably need the biggest praise. I'll tell you about it at a later date, but I had pure joy last week, I think on Tuesday, interviewing Isi Palason, Jorge de Frutos, an extraordinary manager of Rayo, former Athletic Bilbao footballer, 37-year-old Inigo Perez. His way of describing what they're about this season was poetic. It was beautiful and it was inspirational. You come away from certain interviews understanding why it is that players will not only get things right on the pitch and implement strategies, but will run through a brick wall for certain coaches. And Inigo would be one of those, I think. So they win through a dramatic but very good late goal from Alemão, crossed in from Chavarria on the left. Villarreal win at their big brothers, at their neighbours, Valencia, having been a side that's been tested in Europe. I think Europe has shown Villarreal to be a very fledgling project. They lost at home in the midweek, but there they are, dust themselves off straight out, go to Valencia and win. And the theme across all of La Liga, for my cynical, often amused eye, is dodgy penalties. Right across the games, there were some shocking refereeing decisions. So, for example, let's take one of the least controversial, I think, which is the penalty that it looked Madrid were going to be awarded very early in the match against Barcelona, tune me up, but was ruled out. And it was Vinicius kicking Lamine Yamal, which in full flow looked like it could be a penalty. It looked like Lamine Yamal had tripped or blocked Vinicius. Instead, VAR said that Lamine had a right to be going for the ball there, and that his leg is in the space long before Vinicius kicks him. Penalty's ruled out. For my eyes, the VAR got that right, referee on the pitch got it wrong, but there's still brutal arguments about that to this moment. In the remainder of that game, there's also an Mbappe penalty which Szczesny saves. It's a beautiful save. And Mbappe, although he is, I think, with no exception, Harry Kane included, Europe's leading striker right now, Mbappe misses, doesn't convert at least. It's a very good save from the pole. And the stats tell you that that's about 6 penalties missed for club and country in the last 18 months for Kylian Mbappe. He is the penalty taker for Real Madrid now, in my opinion. It was this after you, Claude, situation last season. It's one tiny area where he could tighten up and be more effective. It's not like he's a serial misser, and I think he's now scored about 54 in his career. So the overall numbers look good. That one could have done with going in. Now let's look at the really dodgy penalties. One of the games of the weekend, very easily, came from the bottom two, up at Montilivi. Oviedo looking as if they were going to win easily. Ounahi, the Moroccan international, turning the game, scoring a cracker. But for Stuani's second penalty, the Girona veteran, it's an outright dive to put Girona 3-2 up. Stuani converts it, his second conversion in the game, right foot into his left. The keeper's right, the keeper goes the wrong way both times. And it's a ridiculous decision. Ounahi dives, there's barely any contact, if any. Shouldn't have been a penalty, but it's given and it's scored. Eventually, Oviedo equalise. Gerard Moreno for the opener at the Mestalla. It's a dive. Referee takes a look at it, VAR takes a look at it, and they give it. I cannot understand it. Budimir, in that defeat for Osasuna at home against Celta, scores twice, the second of which is sublime. Misses a Panenka penalty for 3-3, but for his first goal, it's a dive. Referees, VAR, the whistling community in Spain, take a look at the diving. Then, I'm going to be calmer and quieter about this one, but when Real Sociedad finally get a big home win at home to Sevilla, who doesn't beat Sevilla, the champions, Barcelona, they didn't beat Sevilla, but everybody else since does, and does so easily. The alleged handball from the Sevilla defender against Real Sociedad up in Anoeta is given as a penalty, and I don't think it is. Oyarzabal tucks it away, scores the winner. He is on golden form. Back to the Clásico. What about the penalty not given? And I have no dog in the fight here. I've got no dog in the fight at all. But Araujo's in the Real Madrid penalty area. Danny Carvajal barges into his back with the ball nowhere. If you do that in the middle of the pitch, a free kick is given. Several ex-referees on radios are saying, well, in any other match that's given, but because it's a Clásico and Madrid are winning 2-1, that's the referees, not Barcelona fans. At any rate, that penalty is not given. And the one that I got just as annoyed about, because I was working on this game with Pete Jensen, commentating it, is when the Brazilian-born striker Alemão is going for goal, and Youssef tugs his jersey as the cross is coming in, hauls into the ground. Replays show the jersey out this far from his chest. The penalty is not given, and happily Alemão gets the winner at the end, and some justice is done, fair enough. But across La Liga, missed penalties, Mbappe and Budimir, really dodgy penalties given for dives, hello Budimir, hello Gerrard, and just a series of mad events from 11 metres that tells us VAR, ex-referees, ex-professionals adjudicating afterwards and looking back at it. Our opinions differ so much. This is not serial strategic bias. This is the fact that it's like Chinese whispers in your classroom at school. Somebody says one phrase to begin with, it goes through 6 people, and by the time it reaches the 7th, the phrase is completely different. That's how the human eye seems to see penalty incidents. One person, the next person, 6 different views. At any rate, let's close up on the fact that Espanyol's 1-0 win came from their midfielder converted to left back, who they've got partially owned from Villarreal. Romero is increasingly a special looking player, especially set out, because if you watch Espanyol playing, you'll be looking closely and saying, no, Porthos, Aramis, I don't see. There's D'Artagnan. There's the third of the 3 musketeers. There's D'Artagnan, because Romero just has this long wavy locks down about here, and he's got this fiendish moustache and little beard that he could twiddle, and he just looks like D'Artagnan. But he got a very good winner against Elche to begin the week of Espanyol's 125th birthday. So, sitting in the European positions, hell of a fun to watch. Happy birthday, Espanyol. What's that I hear you say? Romero to the Spain squad. Romero a candidate to go to the World Cup? Maybe, but it's his misfortune to live in the era of Grimaldo, Balde, Carreras, Correa. But Romero is a coming man. He looks extremely good on the ball, very adventurous, good goal scoring instinct. That's his second this season, 1 assist from left back. But also he's an elegant footballer who makes good decisions, and increasingly he's becoming a ferocious competitor too, which you need to be if you're going to succeed at the very highest level. A little hello as well, if I'm talking about Romero, to Borja Iglesias, the Panda, who when he came out in support of women's football in Spain was ill-treated by his coach Pellegrini at Betis, lost confidence, but now at Celta he's absolutely flying. He's playing European football this season. He's got 6 goals and 2 more assists. Jutgla, he set up the first goal at Osasuna, Jutgla lobbing the keeper from about 35 metres, scoring his first in 168 days. You would never have known. Well done, Borja. I enjoy watching him. And a sad note to close on. The former Real Madrid, Valencia and Spain goalkeeper, and the man who, when I began to work with Spain and follow them around tournaments, Ocho, has died in his mid-60s. He'd been a little bit unwell for a few months. I had no idea that this was close. A man who was talented, who helped Iker Casillas fly on the international scene. A man who knew how to handle Casillas, teaching him at sometimes, leaving him in peace at other times. I remember very well in Vienna in the quarter-final of 2008 when Italy were beaten by Spain on penalties, and when Iker Casillas needed peace and quiet and Ocho was trying to offer him some details. He was like, leave me, I'm in the zone. And Ocho, instead of being offended, just walked away and left Iker, the cat, in his zone. The save was made, and Iker went at the end to Ocho to thank him for all the prep. Ocho was also the goalkeeping coach in 2010 when Spain won the World Cup, and he built a harmony, he built an understanding between Pepe Reina and Iker Casillas, to the extent that when Pepe Reina, having played against Cardoso, the Paraguay striker, who was about to take a penalty at 0-0 for Paraguay against Spain in the quarterfinals, he built harmony between these two keepers, that Pepe Reina gesticulated to Iker Casillas which way he recommended Casillas dive. Casillas followed that advice, saved the penalty, and Spain went up the pitch and scored and went into the semi-finals. It was about Reina and Casillas, but it was about the atmosphere that Ocho had built for Spain. He's gone. He's been a character in my lifetime here in Spain, and therefore, not just for his politeness and his kindness and the occasional interview, I owe him a lot. I want to say thank you, and God bless Ocho and vaya con Dios. For the rest of you, listen, join us, subscribe, £3.99 a month, 30 quid to the end of the season after the World Cup. And once you're with us, stay tuned.